For decades, the United States and Canada have shared not just a peaceful border, but a unique relationship built on trust, cooperation, and mutual benefit. At the heart of this relationship lies a vital connection: the land route to Alaska, a road that weaves through some of the most breathtaking wilderness on the continent. Alaska, separated from the lower 48 by vast stretches of Canadian territory, depends on the Alaska Highway. This legendary route cutting through British Columbia and the Yukon is essential for travel, commerce, and the very fabric of daily life in the north. More than just a scenic drive, this highway is Alaska's economic lifeline, carrying everything from fresh produce and medical supplies to heavy machinery and building materials. Without it, communities would be isolated, and businesses would struggle to survive. The seamless flow of goods and people across this border has long symbolized the strong partnership and deep trust between the two nations, making it a model for international cooperation. But in 2025, this stability was suddenly shaken. A political and economic dispute erupted, casting uncertainty over the future of this crucial corridor and raising fears on both sides of the border. Overnight, the idea of free passage was at risk. Businesses faced empty shelves, families worried about being separated, and entire communities felt the threat of isolation. For Alaskans, this route is about more than convenience. It's about survival, connection, and the ability to thrive in a remote land. For Canadians, it's about sovereignty, the right to control their own land and make decisions that affect their people and resources. The conflict is a complex mix of law, economics, and politics, with no easy answers. It's a test of diplomacy, negotiation, and the resilience of a decades-old partnership. Let's explore how this vital lifeline, once a symbol of unity, became a flashpoint in North American relations, and what it means for the future of both nations. The crisis began with a new wave of U.S. protectionism. In early 2025, former President Donald Trump threatened a sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian imports, rattling Canada's economy. The tariff would hit everything from auto parts to agriculture, disrupting supply chains and raising prices. Trump's rhetoric escalated, with reports of even more extreme threats, including military action and annexation talk. Canada, led by Prime Minister Trudeau, faced a dilemma: push back and risk escalation, or do nothing and appear weak. Ottawa coordinated with provinces, shifting focus to their own leverage, Alaska's land access. If the U.S. blocked goods south, Canada could disrupt the flow north. The message was clear: Canada would not be bullied into submission. The stage was set for a dramatic response. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of unity, was now a bargaining chip. The trade dispute had become a test of national resolve. British Columbia struck first, taking a bold and unprecedented step in the escalating trade dispute. The province introduced the Economic Stabilization Tariff Response Act, a piece of legislation crafted in direct response to the looming threat of U.S. tariffs. This new law granted BC the authority to impose significant tolls on every vehicle traveling to or from Alaska, but only if the United States moved forward with its tariffs. The tolls were designed to specifically target trucks hauling Alaska's vital food and industrial supplies, threatening to disrupt the state's lifeline and hit its economy where it was most vulnerable. Deputy Premier Nikki Sharma described the move as a necessary deterrent, a last resort, not a step the province wanted to take, but one they felt was essential to protect their interests. The mere announcement of the act sent shockwaves through Alaska and Washington, D.C., sparking urgent discussions among politicians, business leaders, and everyday citizens alike. Importantly, the act was temporary, set to expire in 2027, signaling that British Columbia was still open to negotiation and hoping for a diplomatic solution before the deadline arrived. Yet the move marked a dramatic escalation, transforming what had been a simmering trade spat into a full-blown economic standoff between neighbors. The Alaska Highway, once a quiet and unremarkable route, suddenly became a strategic battleground in a high-stakes international dispute. The cost of goods, the survival of small businesses, and the overall stability of the region now hung in the balance, with uncertainty looming over every shipment and delivery. Canada had made it clear it was willing and able to retaliate forcefully if pushed, showing a new level of resolve on the world stage. The United States now faced a serious dilemma, forced to reconsider its next move in light of Canada's unexpected show of strength. Would American leaders call Canada's bluff and risk further escalation, or would they back down and seek compromise? The world was watching, and the stakes had never been higher. For Alaskans, the threat of tolls was a nightmare. The state relies on the highway for nearly all its fresh food and essential supplies. Trucking is the backbone of Alaska's economy. Any disruption would mean empty shelves and soaring prices. The Alaska Trucking Association warned that even a modest toll would spike costs for families and businesses. Oil, gas, construction, and tourism would all suffer, with ripple effects across the state. The uncertainty alone was enough to chill investment and planning. Alaskans felt like pawns in a high-stakes game they couldn't control. Governor Mike Dunleavy called for urgent diplomacy, warning that escalation would devastate Alaska. The message was clear. The state's lifeline was under threat and time was running out. The pressure was on Washington to find a solution. Alaska's future depended on it. British Columbia wasn't alone. Other provinces joined the fight. Ontario, a major electricity exporter, announced a 25% surcharge on power sent to the US, targeting American consumers in the Northeast and Midwest. The Yukon government stopped buying American liquor and limited US access to government contracts, hinting at its own possible tolls. These moves showed Canada's response was national, not just regional. The federal government added new environmental and indigenous reviews, slowing US traffic through BC and Yukon. The message Canada had many ways to push back, and the pain would be felt far beyond Alaska. The United Front increased pressure on Washington to negotiate. The dispute was no longer just about one highway, it was about the entire US-Canada relationship. Every province and territory had skin in the game. The stakes had never been higher. As tensions rose, leaders on both sides dug in, each determined to defend their interests and their reputations. The atmosphere was charged, with every statement and gesture scrutinized by the public and the media. Trump blasted Canada on social media, accusing them of trying to cut off Alaska and attacking Trudeau as weak. His tweets and speeches grew more aggressive, rallying his supporters and putting pressure on US officials to take a hard line. Trudeau and his ministers stayed measured, insisting Canada was defending its sovereignty, not seeking a fight. They emphasized diplomacy and reassured Canadians that their government would not be bullied or provoked into rash action. BC's Premier Eby called the toll bill leverage, not a weapon. He argued it was a necessary response to protect provincial interests, but stressed that dialogue was still possible. Alaska's Governor Dunleavy urged calm, warning that escalation would only hurt ordinary people. He appealed to reason, reminding everyone that the livelihoods of families and businesses were at stake. He called for a national-level solution, not a province-by-state feud. Dunleavy pushed for cooler heads to prevail, hoping for a resolution that would benefit both sides. Meanwhile, US diplomats quietly sought a way out, even as Trump's rhetoric dominated headlines. Behind the scenes, officials from both countries worked the phones, searching for common ground. The split in Washington was clear. Public bluster versus private negotiation. Some lawmakers called for compromise, while others echoed Trump's hardline stance, deepening the divide. For Canadians and Alaskans, the question was which approach would win, confrontation or compromise. Communities on both sides of the border anxiously followed every development, knowing their daily lives could soon be affected. The outcome would shape the future of the border, determining whether it remained a symbol of cooperation or became a new flashpoint. The world watched as old allies teetered on the edge of a trade war, with global markets and international partners bracing for the fallout. The stakes were personal, economic, and political. Families, businesses, and entire communities waited, uncertain about what the next day would bring. The next move could change everything, setting the course for either reconciliation or deeper division. Alaska found its own leverage, the cruise ship industry. Senator Dan Sullivan proposed waiving the Passenger Vessel Services Act, letting cruise ships sail directly from Seattle to Alaska, bypassing Canadian ports. This would devastate BC's tourism sector, which relies on millions of cruise passengers each summer. The threat was clear. If BC hurt Alaska's economy, Alaska could hit back just as hard. The cruise industry became a bargaining chip, adding a new layer to the standoff. The US had the power to grant such waivers, as it did during the pandemic. Some in Alaska saw it as a way to keep more tourism dollars at home. The dispute was no longer just about highways. It was about ships, jobs, and entire industries. Both sides now had powerful cards to play. The pressure to negotiate had never been greater. Amid the threats, a key question emerged. Does the US have a legal right to Alaska access through Canada? The answer: no. Canada controls its own territory and roads. There's no treaty guaranteeing free passage. The 1942 Alaska Highway Agreement was for wartime, not forever. Decades of cooperation have been based on goodwill, not legal obligation. BC's toll plan, while provocative, is legal. If the US can impose tariffs, Canada can impose tolls. The only real solution is negotiation, not litigation. Canada's leverage is powerful because it's both damaging and lawful. The US can't force Canada's hand, only persuade it. The fate of the Alaska Highway rests on diplomacy, not the courts. As of August 2025, the standoff remains unresolved. Both sides have powerful weapons: US tariffs, Canadian tolls, surcharges, and regulatory slowdowns. The best hope is a negotiated deal, tariffs dropped, tolls shelved, and normal trade restored. That would reaffirm the value of partnership and show that even bitter disputes can be solved. But if talks fail, escalation could spiral. Tolls on the highway, waivers for cruise ships, and economic pain on both sides. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of friendship, is now a fault line. The livelihoods of Alaskans, Canadians, and countless businesses hang in the balance. The world is watching to see if these two allies can step back from the brink. The lesson is clear. Even the closest relationships can be tested. The outcome will shape the future of North American cooperation. For now, the road to Alaska is uncertain. The next chapter is yet to be written.